I'm Michael Monti, Executive Director at ACSA. Welcome to the first of a series of webinars on architecture schools and architectural education. Although I am pre-recording this is a live presentation. We encourage your questions for the discussion portion at the end. You can use the questions portion of the browser interface, or you can tweet your questions using the hashtag ACSA webinars. Following the presentations, we will have a discussion with the speakers. Study, Work, Study is the title of this session. It reflects growing interest and debate about how undergraduate and graduate education prepares students for careers. This has always been a question in architecture education, but more broadly, it is now a question for higher education, particularly given concerns about incurring debt from student loans. So, with the recovery of the U.S. economy since the 2008 recession, many schools are looking to build on what seems an increase in employment opportunities for architecture school graduates and current students. Also influential in this arena is the recent initiative from the National Council of Architecture Registration Boards to work with architecture schools to create tracks for students to complete the education, experience, and examination requirements for licensure. We're starting 2016 with signs of strength in work for architecture firms, especially in the institutional sector. The AIA reports that more firms saw revenue grow in 2015, and fewer firms are projecting revenue decreases in 2016. The National Council of Architecture Registration Boards is also reporting increases in ARE and IDP completions. And looking longer term, the Bureau of Labor Statistics projected a 17% growth in the number of architects from 2012 to 2022. So if, in this labor market, schools want to find ways to get students working, how do you successfully go about this? We've asked 3 speakers to talk about their programs. 2 of them are part of NCARB's Integrated Path cohort, while the third is not. And so we wanted to find ways schools of multiple kinds can pursue these opportunities. You don't have to be a co-op school, and you don't have to be in NCARB's Integrated Path group to take advantage of having students study and work. Finally, you, the audience, don't have to agree that getting students jobs while in school is the responsibility of educators. We want to have a discussion at the end of all aspects of this issue, so please offer your questions. And with that, I'll introduce the speakers. Our first speaker will be Ashley Jennings, AIA. An Atlanta native, Ashley chose Clemson University for study, where she completed a master's degree in architecture and became fascinated with renovation and adaptive reuse, as well as urban planning ideas that stood in direct contrast to the sprawl she encountered in Atlanta. She moved to Charleston in 1994 and opened AJ Architects in 1997. The firm employs a design strategy that emphasizes conservation of existing resources in which both client and context serve as catalysts. Ashley is an adjunct faculty member at the Clemson Architecture Center in Charleston, where she teaches visualization and runs the mentoring internship program that will be the focus of her presentation. Next will be Will Wittig, AIA. Dean of the University of Detroit Mercy School of Architecture since May of 2011, Will has been on the faculty since 2001 in a variety of administrative and teaching roles. Wittig's areas of expertise include community-based urban development, design-build methods, and ecological design. Wittig earned a Master of Architecture from Cranbrook Academy of Art and a Bachelor's in Architecture from the University of Kansas. His professional experience includes 5 years of professional practice in New York City. Wittig also co-founded a professional practice in Detroit called Crossings Architecture. He is currently serving as the Vice President of the Board of Directors for AIA Michigan. The third speaker is Stephen White, AIA. Stephen is Dean and Professor of Architecture at the Roger Williams University School of Architecture, Art, and Historic Preservation in Bristol, Rhode Island. There he co-founded several initiatives and centers linking the school, community, and the profession, including the Career Investment Program for Students and Firms, which he'll talk about today, the Teaching Firm in Residence Program, the university's Community Partnerships Center, and Center for Macro Projects and Diplomacy. He has served as American Institute of Architects Rhode Island President, Association of Collegiate Schools of Architecture Northeast Regional Director, and on the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards Education Committee. And with that, Ashley will start.
Hi, my name is Ashley Jennings. I'm an architect and an adjunct professor with the Clemson Architecture Center in Charleston. This program is certainly a model for a work-study work program. I'm going to give you a brief overview of our program, show you the facility, give you some basic information about the pedagogy of the program, and go into further description of the internship program, which I've run for the past 12 years. Clemson School of Architecture has developed a fluid campus. Students can study in Genoa, Italy, Barcelona, Spain, and Charleston, South Carolina. Each campus has developed a pedagogy unique to its location and context. Charleston has the history and a notable urban center, a mayor that's distinguished for urban design, a high density of design professionals, a tradition of craft, and many design and craft partnerships. This provides a unique environment for study. The CACC, which is the Clemson Architecture Center in Charleston, is part of an interconnected, geographically distributed community of teachers and learners whose local mission is to bridge academia and practice in a hybridized environment, a cross between academic and professional modes of work. The CACC faculty is comprised entirely of professionals, so most of us practice outside of the academic environment. It's a hybrid learning atelier that blurs the distinction between the academy and the practice, the theory and the application, and the thinking and the making. It provides a unique situation for the students, and it's garnered a lot of awards over the past few years, including an award for best mentoring practices. The facilities are located in the historic district. Right now, our studios and offices are located in the Old Marine Hospital, which is a National Historic Landmark at 20 Franklin Street. It was designed by a famous architect, Robert Mills, and completed in 1834. It's important for us to be within the historic district and within the context and the walking urban environment of Charleston. We're in the process of expanding the program, and we'll move to a larger facility to share space with Clemson's Historic Preservation Program and Architecture and Health programs. So students can walk to work and class, and we hope that they are immersed in the culture and the context, sometimes even the floodwaters of Charleston on a daily basis. The CACC is devoted to service learning, so studios are offered in two tracks: urban design, which is called the Studio U, and fabrication, which is Studio V. And they work on actual issues and projects in Charleston and the Low Country. Students work collaboratively, often in teams led by professors and graduate students. Studio V is design build, which includes recent projects, including an outdoor gathering area for a community garden and a food prep prototype for small local farms. The idea here is to get the students involved hands-on in community projects. Studio U exposes students to urban context through service learning projects. Collaboration occurs between students, clients, professors, consultants, government agencies, and the community. Recent projects include programming and conceptual design for the YWCA and master planning for undeveloped areas of the medical university. Off-campus study of the CACC presents an opportunity to demonstrate the interrelationship between theoretical principles of architecture as a profession and their application in practice. By supplementing the typical studio and seminar courses with an opportunity to participate in an internship, the intent is to reinforce the link between the academic and professional realms. The CACC mentoring program has been developed as a method of exploring the practice of architecture or design through experiential learning. And the way this is set up in the coursework is that the students are given mornings throughout the week from 8 a.m. till 1 p.m. to participate in their internships, and then all coursework happens in the afternoon. So it certainly is integrated. Throughout the course of the mentorship, we want the student to encounter the concrete experience of practice as an intern in an architecture, landscape architecture, construction, or planning office, We want them to observe and reflect on that experience through journal and blog entries. And we want them to develop a level of knowledge and insight and begin to explore an individual method of practice. They can apply this knowledge, insight, and method in other courses, especially in the, within the CACC framework and also in future internships. The participants in the program include the sponsoring firm, which is the firm that hires students, the mentor, who is the person within the firm that actually works one-on-one with the student who becomes the intern, and last but not least, professor, because this is a course after all. Over the years, we placed as many as 18 students in one semester, and we've been fortunate to have some excellent firms that are committed to the program. But we're always on the lookout for funding to supplement the students' pay, especially when there's an economy issue, when we have a difficulty finding firms to participate in the program. So we can typically provide more positions when there's a grant in place to match the amount that a firm contributes. We're currently receiving a 50% grant for each undergraduate student through Clemson's co-op program called UPIC. And the firms that participate actually contribute the other 50%, and the students are then paid through the university. The graduate students actually receive assistantships that are funded by the sponsoring firm through Clemson sponsored programs. Not only do they receive a small stipend or hourly rate for the time that they work in the internships, they also receive tuition remission, which gives them a discount on their tuition for the semester. It's not a bad deal considering that they're also receiving academic credit and IDP credit. Since this is a course, the students are evaluated in work and academic components. The sponsoring firm and the mentor provide and evaluate the work component within these requirements. So when you look at what is required of the mentor and the student, the mentor is basically committed to sharing the method of practice and praxis, their philosophy for practice, and to provide absolute and contingent training for the student within the realm of simple tasks and also the practice of architecture. They're also required to mentor the student to work with them on a day-to-day basis and ensure that they understand what they're being asked to do and how they produce the work. The intern is required to initiate and maintain a series of goals for the semester. They're asked to contribute to the firm's work, obviously, and also to contribute to the office culture, to be engaged in the office dialogue. And they're also encouraged to develop a broader knowledge of practice and to further define their own knowledge and their own conviction with practice. The professor provides and evaluates the academic component. That would be me. The students maintain an online journal and are required to document the goals for the semester, for each day, the time worked, the task completed, listed with respect to IDP hours. And they're also asked to reflect on a weekly basis on lessons learned about practice. They're also encouraged to document the work that they do on a day-to-day basis and show us exactly what it is they're doing in the office. We have a lot of discussions with the sponsoring firms about what should and shouldn't be posted in the online journal, but typically we are asked by the sponsoring firms to include things that the student had active participation in. The graduate students have an additional academic requirement. The students, because they're graduate students and need to have a graduate level course, are required to engage their sponsors or their mentors in a discussion facilitated by the professor in the form of a biweekly prompt. The prompt usually comes as a question about practice. It can involve anything from office structure to liability. We have a lot of good professional practice types of prompts that occur. The students respond to the prompts and ensuing discussions as a post on their journaling site. The class meetings occur twice a semester, and those class meetings are when we all come around a table, the mentors, the students, and myself, and participate in a discussion about reading. The class meetings tend to be really entertaining. With a good age span among the mentors that we have in the program, we tend to get a lively discussion, especially when the topic becomes something along the lines of modern architecture in the historic context. It always seems to be pretty entertaining. As with any type of program, we always have challenges. Funding with grants and managing payroll for the students is something that's outside the box of the academic realm, typically. Recruiting and maintaining good mentors really hasn't been a challenge in Charleston, but we always want to be sure that the sponsoring firms are really engaged in the program, and also ensuring that the students are committed to the rigors of work and study. It's a really big leap for some undergraduate students to work and go to school at the same time. The graduate students seem to have a better handle on it. One of the things that is being developed is Clemson was recently selected by NCARB to produce an integrated path to licensure program. We're developing that program as a degree certificate, so it'll be an option as a degree, and we'll rely on the Charleston Center for many of the internship requirements. So we're starting to streamline that process now, looking at how we start to provide the opportunity to complete all of the IDP required within a 6-year program, and also how we start to manifest preparation for exams within coursework, and also when we start to offer the exam during that 6-year time frame. We do participate in community outreach because we engage local professionals in the mentoring program, and the CAC is connected with the local design community. Service learning projects give the students an opportunity to learn about design experientially, and we certainly believe that this hybrid learning environment prepares students for a thoughtful and critical practice down the road. So the CACC truly operates in the study, work, study model in more than one respect. Fabrication, service learning, and internships all contribute to that setting. Being immersed in Charleston's urban context, learning from a tradition of craft and practicing within a special historic fabric provide Clemson architecture and landscape architecture students with a unique study and work environment.
Thanks for your presentation, Ashley. And I'd like to welcome everyone again to the next segment of today's session on academic internships in architecture. My name is Will Wittig, and I'm a professor and the Dean of the School of Architecture at the University of Detroit-Mercy. Today I'd like to give you an overview of our co-op program and also introduce a new initiative that we are working on in response to NCARB's request for proposals for developing integrated pathways towards licensure. UDM is a private university located obviously in Detroit, which you can tell by our name. UDM is sponsored by the Jesuits and the Sisters of Mercy. In fact, we are the only accredited school of architecture in North America at either a Mercy or Jesuit university. The UDM School of Architecture is committed to providing a rich educational experience that includes several strategies that are not limited by the traditional classroom experience. This process emphasizes 4 interconnected and complementary themes that expand the boundaries of traditional architectural education. Those 4 themes are active participation with community-based design through community design studios and other extracurricular opportunities for our students. Second is the integration of lab and shop work into the educational process. Third is developing global and cultural understanding through study abroad experiences. We offer 2 full semester study abroad programs specifically for architecture students. And finally, engagement with the profession through the co-op model. The 5-year accredited MArch program at UDM has a long-standing tradition of integration with the profession, including one of the oldest co-op programs in the country. To earn the accredited professional degree, students are required to complete 2 semester-long placements working in the profession. This occurs after at least 2.5 years in the program, so students have already gained a fair amount of experience in the classroom and are able to make valuable contributions in an office setting. And in turn, they are able to learn critical real-world lessons that are difficult to translate sometimes in a classroom setting. Students also work with a faculty member during their co-op semesters to ensure that they are evaluating and reflecting on their experience. The students are responsible for securing their positions, and they are also free to choose the location and firm that best suits their professional development objectives. Every semester, we have students placed in co-op positions both in the Detroit metropolitan area and with other firms around the country. The UTM School of Architecture enjoys a very robust collaboration with many firms, particularly throughout the state of Michigan, and currently the market for placing students in these positions is excellent. Some firms routinely hire co-op students on a regular basis, and in any given year, dozens of firms are actively employing our students as interns. To prepare for the co-op experience, all students complete an introductory course that prepares them to seek and effectively complete their co-op placements. In this course, students are given an introduction to typical architecture firm structures and culture, and they are prepped on how to look for a job that meets their objectives and interests, how to present themselves in interviews and through their portfolio, all of which assist them in gaining their required professional experience and advancing their own personal career goals. The prep course is taught by the director of the co-op program, who also assists students in finding their placements and guides them from an academic perspective during their co-op. Our co-op director is a licensed architect who is an active practitioner and is also a long-standing adjunct professor who has been running our co-op program for several years. He is well known in the professional community in the metropolitan Detroit area and has served our students quite well as they prepare for and complete their co-op assignments. To assist students with their career development, the School of Architecture also offers a job fair each spring where local firms come to the SOA to interview students for co-op positions and full-time employment after graduation. Additionally, the co-op director, the dean of the school, which is me, and other faculty members work behind the scenes to help open doors for our students who are seeking internship placements. The school is also home to the Detroit Collaborative Design Center, which is an award-winning architecture practice embedded in the school. This means that some of our students can actually do a co-op semester right here on campus. The DCDC is staffed by full-time architects and urban designers who work exclusively for nonprofit community organizations. The DCDC is the primary applied research arm of the school and provides students with a teaching hospital kind of setting. The DCDC provides a number of co-op positions each term, as well as part-time jobs for work-study students, and they routinely sponsor an upper-level design studio as well. The school also provides other opportunities for engagement with the profession, including firm visits, mentoring through the state AIA network, engaging adjunct faculty who are actively practicing, special lectures and workshops conducted by practitioners, firm-sponsored studios, and the regular inclusion of area professionals on our juries. All this leads to great outcomes for our graduates as they transition fully into the professional environment after graduation. For example, last year on graduation day, 90% of the class had at least one job offer, and all graduates were employed in the field within 60 days of graduation. Recently, concerns about the national statistics that track the percentage of architecture graduates who are seeking licensure and the average length of time to attain licensure have prompted broad discussions about the factors that may be contributing to those statistics and the possible impact that the length of time to licensure may have on the perceived attractiveness of the profession for young people. As some of you know, last year NCARB put out a request for proposals from schools to address the licensure process by considering ways to more fully integrate the three components of licensure. Building on the foundation of our existing co-op program, the school is currently developing an optional path for those students who are highly motivated to attain professional licensure. Our integrated path to licensure proposal was one of just 13 accepted nationwide by NCARB in their pilot program last year. Along with some other minor changes in our existing curriculum, the central strategy we are using to achieve this integrated path is to offer students the option to complete 4 additional co-op terms between the completion of their bachelor's degree and the start of what is now their 5th-year master's program. Students who elect this pathway will have the opportunity to simultaneously complete the accredited degree, the requirements for professional experience as defined by NCARB's IDP program, and taking the licensing exams. A successful student on this track would then be able to graduate from this 6-year version of the master's program as a licensed architect. This slide illustrates the basic outline of our existing curriculum on top, and the second chart illustrates the shifts that allow for the integrated path option, the main change being the time-out year that allows for 16 months of uninterrupted work experience. During this time, students would also take all sections of the ARE exam, with general preparation in the first summer, then 2 exams being taken each of the remaining 3 terms. On the academic side, students would also be completing the thesis prep class during this time to establish the agenda for their thesis project and to help them prepare for their return to the academic setting. So after the 16-month co-op is complete, in addition to the previous 2 co-ops that are already required for the degree, students would return to complete the master's program in their 6th year. If a student is a bit short on their IDP hours, or if they did not pass all sections of the exam, they would have 1 more 4-month period after spring commencement to complete those steps within 6 calendar years of beginning the program. The overall mission of the School of Architecture at UDM is to help all our students realize their professional aspirations. We recognize that students have very diverse career goals. Not everyone who chooses to pursue a degree in architecture decides to ultimately become a licensed architect. So while we are committed to preparing our students for the profession, we also encourage other pathways, which is illustrated by this list of alternative careers that our alumni have pursued recently. We don't expect a high percentage of students to choose the integrated pathway to licensure, but we see this program as a natural extension of our co-op program, an important complement to our long-standing commitment to create graduates who are eager to serve their community and who are practice-ready, regardless of how they want to define their practice. If you have any questions about our program, I would encourage anyone to email me, or you can find out more information about our program at any of the sites listed on this last slide. Thanks for your attention today.
Thanks very much for that presentation, Will. I appreciate it. My name is Steve White. I'm the Dean at Roger Williams School of Architecture, Art, and Historic Preservation in Bristol, Rhode Island. And what I'd like to cover today is a program we've created called a Career Investment Program, which is intended to provide financing for undergraduate and graduate student work experiences outside of coursework, both on campus and off campus. The program supports students, the profession, and academic, professional, and community collaboration. It supports students and our educational goals by balancing student study, work, and service experiences while students are in school. It supports the profession by financially supporting architecture's paid internship requirements for emerging professionals. And it supports academic, professional, and community collaboration by reaching out and providing paid student work experiences within the university, within the architecture profession, and also in collaboration with nonprofit and community groups. Funding for the program is brought together from federal, university, and donor sources to create a catalytic startup support for student work with faculty and external corporate, nonprofit, and government partners, and with artists beyond the architecture placements. Students are able to take up compelling research and professional experiences as they transition toward advanced study and career placements. Federal funds for paid internships have been available since the 1960s. I think in my 20-plus years in architecture education, I think this reality is one of the missing pieces that I know I wasn't aware of for quite a long time, and I think is really something that we could all make use of in a variety of ways in our programs. The U.S. Department of Education annually provides, in a very steady way over multiple years, about $100 million a year to support the Federal Work-Study Program to U.S. universities and colleges. Funding levels for each university is public information and available online. In my case, for example, I know I had a little bit of a hard time finding out how much money our university received initially, but it is all posted, and all of us can find out not only what our own universities are doing in this area, but also what's available across the country. A very exciting aspect of federal work study, which makes complete sense once we think about it, is that it was created in the early 1960s as part of the War on Poverty after the March on Washington by Martin Luther King. And federal work study was created and included as part of the Economic Opportunity Act of 1964. The program was conceived to support transition to work and the professions from colleges, and this appears relatively forgotten and underutilized. Some overview on how the federal work study guidelines are available to us all and how they allow us to engage on and off campus. Students may be employed under the federal work study program on campus by the school and off campus in federal, state, or local public agencies or in private, nonprofit, or for-profit firms. Off-campus work study jobs with federal, state, or local agencies or private nonprofits must be in the public interest. Off-campus federal work study jobs with private for-profit organizations must be academically relevant to the maximum extent possible. And I think probably we may have all thought, if we aren't utilizing this available federal funding, is that government funding had to be only for nonprofit or academic uses. But literally one of the main goals of that founding moment in the early 1960s was to help students transition to work in the disciplines that they were studying in. A key idea to keep in mind, if you may consider this option, is that the federal share of federal work study jobs with private for-profit organizations is limited to half, 50%. And each school must use at least 7% of its federal work study allocation to employ students in community service jobs. So stated a little differently is 90+% of a university's federal work study allocation could go to support paid internships if we chose to. University and donor funds are certainly a key part of the career investment program, and also key in realizing that federal funds are limited to 50% for private off-campus work. And so Roger Williams University provides additional work study funding based on its commitments to student career development and also to advancing the professions. In our case, probably about 75% of the funding comes from our own university. And I do have to say that the availability and history of the federal work study program funding strengthened our university's resolve about our own mission and convinced us to utilize more of our university funds to support paid work placements and to support the professions in concert with federal funds. So some things about how it works. Compensation levels and memorandums of understanding. Undergraduate full-time students receiving federal and university work study awards are paid at an entry-level hourly wage in our region with a total allowable of up to $2,400 a year. Graduate students are paid at a higher hourly wage in our region and up to $3,000 per year. All of our students are eligible each year with prorated funding for part-time students. In that case, some of them, our part-time students are virtually all graduate students. And we work out memoranda of understanding agreements with the firms and organizations in established templates. We found, for example, that we need a different template for in-state placements rather than out-of-state placements due to tax reasons, and we've worked that out through our Office of General Counsel and in agreements with the various firms. Most of the administration of these placements is handled by the school in terms of handling timings of payroll and other transfers of funds in conjunction with the firm. That actually lessens the burden on the firm for the duration of these startup periods when the university and federal support is supporting the placements. Another thing that in terms of how it works that was very important for us in terms of calendar and location, as we adjusted our thinking and realized that funding support is available on a fiscal year basis, we adjusted our thinking and again our calendars to realizing that students seeking employment in firms would likely be doing this most advantageously during the summers and during the winters as well as during the academic year. And so our utilization of funds has gone up drastically in a good way since we have worked within a full calendar year rather than a fall-spring academic calendar. And you can see that we basically see this as an outside of coursework internship relationship with firms, and so students still have a full course load during the fall and spring semesters, and they are paid outside of coursework, which most often now occurs to some degree, particularly for graduate students during the semester, as they may have a slightly lighter course load. But for undergraduates, most of them utilize their funding during the winter and particularly the summers. As we've adopted another calendar, we found that our work location is obviously much more flexible. The funding is portable around the United States, and so students can utilize their funds and placements with firms and organizations around the country, and in some cases for them closer to home. Some things that we've achieved in adopting this very extensive program now within our school is that a lot of internships and assistantships with faculty and academic centers have now had a great infusion of funding. Students work on faculty publications, including a host of book publications that our faculty have achieved. And also in terms of working with our faculty on international competitions, as example, or arts installations, or ongoing faculty research into shaded cities and other kinds of activities. And also, a lot of our students now work with our Community Partnership Center, which is an interdisciplinary collaborative effort across the institution. And particularly our senior and graduate students work with the CPC in guiding projects through in support of community initiatives. In terms of our off-campus activities, in the 3 years of the program really being off and running on a full level, we've participated with more than 90 firms and organizations, mostly in the Northeast, but also around the country. And the idea that funding is available to many students in many locations has expanded the student utilization at a much higher level than our previous student work study made use of. Another kind of heartening thing that we found, particularly with bigger, more financially well-placed firms, is that many of the firms now turn down our investment offer and hire our interns anyway, because some of the larger firms don't need the funding the way smaller firms do. So we end up, we've in some ways the career investment program has been a kind of a door opener to several firms, and then they use their own funds. Kind of further, though, one of the things that we've been very excited about is, given the reality of the demographic that most of U.S. architecture firms are under 10 people. We're very excited that we've been able to invest not only in our students, but into smaller firms. We love the idea that one of the roles of universities in the set of relations with the profession and with community organizations is that we can bring resources to bear as much as we ask groups beyond the university to support us. There are a lot of ways that the federal support of $100 million across the country is really an investment source that higher education can invest into the professions and into community organizations. And smaller firms are appreciative, and it often makes a great difference in whether they can bring somebody on for a short-term internship or whether they can't. One other key factor with all of these placements is that our funding runs out for undergraduates after about 8 weeks and for graduate students after about 5 weeks. And so, again, this is a startup idea where our funding supports the transition and, in a way, the test drive, and then we all expect that the firms will take the students from there as they're capable and as the firms are interested. A couple of things about Roger Williams University architecture that have been key components of supporting the career investment program is that we also have had for about the past 10 years a teaching firm and residence program where leading firms, multiple members of leading firms come to the school to teach design studios and seminar courses at the advanced and graduate level. And so our engagement with firm culture and with multiple firms, probably about 20 over the years now, has created a more receptive and reciprocal engagement with leading firms in New England and in some cases farther afield in the U.S. and abroad. And invariably, the teaching firms will, after they see how students work in studios, will scoop up a few students and take them back to the office, again, either supported by the career investment process or funding them on their own. And additionally, I'd say another key thing for us has been that Samsung Electronics America has created the Samsung Design Studio here in the school, where each student desk has distributed computing, and so students can use an array of software for free at their desks with a very high-quality Samsung monitor. And so our students are more capable, and it's kind of transformed our studio culture to be a little more professionally oriented. Students still use an array of hand and computer-generated tools, but we really have embraced the idea and the reality that we're a professional program, and we seek to engage firm culture and professional culture more broadly and both bring it into the school but also contribute to it beyond the school. And finally, in terms of what we've invested so far, over these last 3 years, we've had on offer about $600,000 or $700,000 annually from university and federal funds, and the students have used about $400,000 of that. And it's interesting that undergraduate students have utilized the program probably about 2/3 of the capacity. The graduate students probably, in any of the years, anywhere between 85% and 95% of the students have utilized their support. And so we're very excited about that. And additionally, we can tell ourselves and we can tell the profession and the local or other economies that, we've invested about $300,000 a year into the Rhode Island economy, for example. And we can show where it has gone and to what firms, and we can help make a case that the federal government is not only supporting students and the university is not only supporting its own students, but we're also supporting the economy and the community and the profession of architecture. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening, everybody. This is Michael Monti, live on the phone now with our three presenters. And we have a few questions submitted through the Q&A interface, and we've received those, and we'll try to fold those together. and you can continue asking questions. So thank you for joining. My first line of questioning is for all three presenters. I'm interested in you saying some more about managing expectations, both of your students as well as of the firms that you work with. What do you tell the practitioners should be their priorities and expectations when they take on a student, either in a co-op context for the first two or through the Career Investment Program with Roger Williams? Let's start with Ashley.
Well, with the firms that are participating in the program, we certainly encourage them to become a mentor to the student, and that takes on a lot of responsibility in that the relationship is similar to a professional and an intern, but the students have a 1-hour unpaid education component in the office every week that is maintained so that there is extra time to work individually with the mentor on things that they may not be willing to spend time on if it's on their dime. So we do have that component as well as with the students where they're getting a grade for the internship, so they're required to do so many types of responses, and we tell them on a daily basis that they're driving the internship, so that we encourage them to ask for assignments, to ask questions, to participate as much as they possibly can, so that they're getting a lot out of the internship. So with the structure of the program, just through the different channels that we check on the students with, I review each student at the mid-semester with the mentor. We sit down and go over their performance. The students set goals, and they maintain those goals. We check on them throughout the semester. There's a lot of ways to check how the internship is going. At the end of the semester, too, the students evaluate the firms that they work for. So we have an opportunity for them to tell us if there was a situation where they didn't feel comfortable or if there was an opportunity for them to do a lot more work and they weren't presented with those opportunities. So we understand how the firms engage the students. We have let firms go from the program before. Doesn't happen very frequently, but there have been situations where we had a firm that was asking a student to do Christmas shopping for a wife. So we do eliminate some of those firms sometimes.
Well, Will, it sounded like Dorian Moore is a real pro at what he does. So how does he approach a firm, or how would you approach a firm?
Well, actually, I would have a similar response to Ashley in that we do try to instill in both the students and the firms who are participating in the co-op program that it is an educational experience, and it's not just an opportunity for the students to earn money and check off IDP hours, and it's not just an opportunity for the firm to get production out of a young person, at a fairly low wage. It's really meant to be folded into the educational experience, and so in a similar fashion, we have a process by which Dorian is preparing the students before they go out on co-op to dispel some myths that they may have in place about firm life, and then he's in contact with both the student and their employers during the co-op placement, and then there's significant debriefing afterwards, which includes a term paper that the students have to complete along with a portfolio that talks about their experiences, challenges that they faced, things that they learned that were unexpected, and so a similar kind of interaction that includes preparing them before the co-op, engaging with them while they're out on a co-op placement, and debriefing afterwards. Although I would just add that one of the things that we have not done in the past, which we'll be instituting next year, is to have the students debrief after their co-ops in a group setting, so that rather than just each student working with the co-op director one-on-one, the students can engage with each other and compare their experiences, which I think will be a helpful component so that they can, obviously there's a different kind of learning that would happen from that kind of comparative reflection.
Good. Thank you. And Steve White, let me modify the question slightly, just along the same lines. Can you say something also about the organizational structure that you use to run the career investment program?
Sure. If I can answer a little bit about the expectations, it's been a really surprising thing, and then I'll get to the structure. I think
Sure.
us being able to have funding for these initial periods of an internship actually has had our students be in almost like a junior executive position on entry, at least for a few weeks, they're included in, they're treated as young fellows in a way, or they have a higher standing, and they're less expected to only be productive in a more entry-level way. They get an overview of more of the areas of IDP, and it's really been very, very positive. In terms of our organizational structure to pull it off, our associate dean is the main point, and working with our person formerly known as the IDP coordinator, and we handle the agreements through our architecture office. We have more clerical support than we had before, and so we manage what's turning out to be about 130 or so agreements a year through filling up our time more. We may be reaching capacity, but it's a relatively simple organization, but it is within the school, and literally for students in the state, we process the payroll, and so we do have more administrative activity in that way.
Right. Let me introduce a different line of questioning about earning IDP credits and the ability to double dip. I think if you don't realize it, students now are able to earn academic credit and IDP hours concurrently, as I understand it. So, Steve, what percentage of Roger Williams students are earning IDP credits in theirs?
In the career investment program?
Yeah.
I would. Well, this is actually
through on-campus work too.
Right. Yeah. No, I would say this is really boosted our just general activity. We're probably about overall undergrad and grad together, about 60% of people are actively. It's probably a little higher than that, achieving their IDP credits along the way. Now.
Sure. And Will, maybe you want to address your plans for the integrated path cohort too.
Right.
So let me ask you, how many students do you expect to be part of the integrated path cohort, and kind of do you have a problem working with firms to get them to agree to give students a kind of a range of experiences to earn their IDP credits?
Well, first of all, to answer the first part of that question, we are still awaiting legislative changes that are necessary in the state of Michigan. First of all, to adapt to the NCARB's change in the IDP requirements that are rolling out in June, and also to allow students to begin the examination process before graduation, both of which are conflict with our current occupational code. So it's a little bit tough to gauge because it's not an official program for us yet. Although students might pursue that elsewhere, I don't want to make it official till it's appropriate in our state. I'm guessing it's going to be a small percentage of our students, though, who are motivated to choose this track. I would say maybe 20% of our students at most, I would think, would want to jump on the integrated pathway. But there are some students who are highly motivated. It kind of dovetails into the IDP question, because our students are typically starting their IDP record with the existing co-op program. And in fact, we can now boast the youngest architect in the state who, building on his co-op experience, was able to attain licensure 15 months after graduation. So we do have some students who are very focused on licensure, and I think will be very interested in that integrated pathway. But I think it'll be a small percentage overall.
Good. Ashley, there's a question out there about earning IDP hours. Can you talk more about the different work settings in which your students end up, and
right.
Are they able to do setting
I didn't circle back to that question exactly. As with any emerging professional, we all know that there can be challenges in terms of getting experience in a very broad range of those categories. I think our students, to be honest with you, because they're early in that process, they are not as focused on whether or not their experience is getting spread around in different areas from an IDP perspective, although certainly we are working with our firm partners to ensure that our students are getting a good, broad experience. And again, as with any emerging professional, some firms are much better at that than others. And it can be a challenge in some cases where a student may get stuck doing construction documents for the full duration of their co-op placement. So it is an ongoing challenge.
Sure. Ashley, what about you at Clemson?
Well, we employ students in firms other than just architectural practice firms. So we actually have a company, JMO, that is a woodworker that we've employed students with. We have a student this semester that's working with them. So we don't always set them up in the traditional internship. So we do get a lot through experience setting A, but some of them come through O and F. So, and typically in our program, even though the undergraduate students are required to track their hours in the internship for IDP, a lot of times it's the graduate students who are really taking advantage of the IDP. The undergraduate students aren't always enrolled in IDP when they start our internships. So, and the university, Clemson University, actually pays for the registration for IDP, but a lot of times we receive the undergraduate students before that process has happened at Clemson. So usually 50% of our students actually take advantage and actually track their IDP while they're doing their internships.
Sure. Let me ask a question about international students, and I'll start with Steve White first. Are there particular issues with getting federal work-study funds for international students or placing international students in firms? What's been your experience?
What we do and what's been the key for us in balancing federal funding and university funding is the university funding we can use as we see fit. And so we provide the work support for all of our students based on our own university's gauging of basically investing in the students. It's clearly part of a financial aid perspective, but probably about 90% of our students are collectively offered financial aid. So in a way, the key to the program is in some ways funding that might previously have been given as a scholarship is part of it is now increasingly has a work component as well, on the idea that people don't only need a little bit lower tuition level, they need the opportunity to work.
Sure.
And so we give the federal support to the students who are eligible through the federal guidelines, and we provide roughly, again, 3 times as much as our federal usage through our own university funding.
Right. How about Will? Any comments on international students?
We don't have that many international undergraduate students, but we, since they are enrolling in a course at the university, students coming from most locations, this would vary more depending on where they're coming from, are typically able to do the co-op and maintain their visa status. So we do have students from Canada and from Poland, actually, because we have an exchange program there, who do co-op placements with us. We're not using the financial aid model. Our students are being paid straight away by the firm, so it's a different perspective.
Right.
There.
Okay. Ashley, anything to add?
No, we have a lot of international students in the graduate program, and we've always had success placing them as well.
Right. Well, let's go to one last question because we have less than a minute left. What is one challenge or surprise in running these 3 programs that you didn't expect? Ashley first.
I think the difficulty working with the university from a bureaucratic standpoint has been the biggest challenge. Because we're such a small program and we're off campus, we tend to run almost autonomously from the university, but are beholden to the university for things like these grants, the sponsored programs that we run the graduate program through. And when we first started the program 12 years ago, it was really difficult to talk to accountants and to get them to wrap their heads around a program like this. And I think that was the biggest stumbling block, and it still is on a day-to-day basis when we're trying to place the students and we're working with a financial calendar rather than an academic calendar. That's been the biggest challenge, I'd say.
Great. Thank you. Will, biggest challenge?
Our program has been ongoing for many, many years, and we haven't quite launched the integrated path version. So I would just answer that question by saying really the only challenge we face is periodic economic downturns when it becomes a challenge. You can imagine in 2009, 2010, it took much more effort on our part to get all our students placed for co-ops. These days I have firms beating down the door. So it's really just a challenge periodically when we hit those slow periods.
Yep. Thank you. Steve White, last word.
I think sort of challenge and opportunity is that all of the ways I think that we thought previously are changed. I think being an investor more consciously than we were before, our relationships are changing between, say, the university as almost like a foundation in some cases, and partnering then with some of the people off campus. Whereas before, again, I think we always saw ourselves as an entry level into the profession that was larger. I think we have more of just a fundamental rethinking of academic institution, profession, government, nonprofit, all rethinking how we work together and mutually invest with each other to support the transition of young people into their futures.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We're up against the end of the event. I want to thank our three speakers and thank the audience members for sending your questions. We've seen all your questions, and we will try to find a way to address some of the other areas. And until next time, we will see you online. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.